Please rise for the school song. A very good evening to all of you. Welcome to Hostel and Beyond, a journey of an entrepreneur, organized by the Royal College Hostelers Association. We hope you are all comfortable and sitting in your places very happily. We please request you to follow all the COVID-19 safety guidelines, the general ones, as much as you can throughout this evening to help keep others safe as well as yourself. To officially welcome all of you, I would cordially like to invite the President of ROKOHA, Mr. Janaka Kumarasinghe. He is a human resource thought leader, director of Kent Ridge Private Limited, non-executive director of Valuable Finance PLC, and COO of 1 Billion Tech. A visiting lecturer of the University of Moratuwa and a past president of the Institute of Personnel Management and Asia Pacific Federation of HRM. Mr. Janaka Kumarasinghe, the podium is yours.
Good evening. Thank you, Sashikala, for that introduction. Hostel and Beyond, a journey of an entrepreneur. On behalf of Royal College Old Hostelers Association, ROKOHA, let me welcome each and every one of you for this forum. I am pleased to welcome Mr. M.V.S. Gunathilake. To date, he was the acting principal doing a GMN service during a challenging time, sir. And also, we had very good cordial relationship with the hostel and ROKOHA. So we are honored to have you here today as the chief guest. Our guest of honor, Colonel Dr. Hiran Wimalarathne, the newly appointed Secretary RCU. He told me that he will be coming after another session. And actually, when he comes, we welcome him because he is also a son of a renowned Royal College Hosteler, Major General Vijay Wimalarathne. Also, Mr. Asanga Peris, the Secretary, School Development Society. Despite your busy schedule, you are here. You are most welcome. Mr. Nalin Pathikirikorale, Deputy President, RCU, past President ROKOHA, and today guest speaker. And your family members are most welcome. We really appreciate that when we nominated you to speak, and we requested you readily accepted without any hesitation. And also, we are glad to have Mr. Amaratunga, Senior Master Clubs and Services here, because I know he has been very supportive towards hostel causes, because I have met him a couple of times. He was very supportive. We very welcome you, sir. Also, we have here with us our acting warden, Mr. Janaka Jayasinghe, who is having a challenging time looking after the children during a pandemic time. I know he is having a lot of challenges. You are very welcome here. And also, we are very pleased to have Mr. Aruna Silla, who is our former warden who has been here for a long time, gracing this occasion. Also, if I missed any teachers here, I welcome them. And Chairman, Hostel Management Advisory Committee, Mr. Sanjay Vijay, and present and former office bearers of RCU, I can see former Secretary, Mr. Manju Ariratne here. Also, Hostel Advisory Committee members, ROKOA senior members, like Mr. Jayanta Surya Bandara, we mostly welcome, and Mr. Bandhu Sena, we welcome, and Mr. Senaka Fernando, we mostly welcome you here. Also, the distinguished audience. We are much pleased to have you here because without an audience, this wouldn't have been an event. And to add to that event, we have the hostel prefects and the students, the young students are here. And I think I'm sure this is going to be an inspiration for them. Dear sons, we welcome you here. And also, the only lady in the audience, our compere and our moderator, who is doing a voluntary job for us, Mrs. Sashikala Vanigasinghe, we welcome you. And also we are glad we have the presence of media here. Thanks to our efforts of Mr. Anjana Ratnavira and Mr. Nandalal Vijayasinghe and the rest of the team. We welcome you from all the media institutions. Since of late, ROCO has been recognizing the achievement of past hostelers in different ways. When you talk of our hostelers, they are doing very well in different fields. Now, say, if you take the list of doctors, we have more than, who has passed out since 70s, around more than 100 specialists, consultant doctors, just to name a few. But we felt this time we should recognize an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs are the people who create products and services for the society. At the same time, they create employment and wealth to the society. Because if you have more and more entrepreneurs, like Mr. Pathikirikorale, the problems we are facing today won't be there in the society, because we are totally dependent on the politicians and others for the jobs. But entrepreneurs create jobs and wealth for the society. Because they take risk. They do round-the-clock duties. 24 hours, they shoulder 24-hour responsibilities, burn the midnight oil, and do all these things. So it's high time we felt we want to recognize. So this discussion is focused on Mr. Nalin Pathikirikorale. I'm sure he has a story to tell, because the McCurry story, building a brand from the scratch and taking our spices to the world, is not an easy task during a person's lifetime. So he has achieved that, and he is taking our spices to the world, where the Westerners came to Sri Lanka in search of spices. Now he is taking our spices to the Western and other world. So I'm sure this story will inspire others, not only the entrepreneurs, also inspire other young entrepreneurs to do similar things, and it will recognize the achievements of hostelers. So I'm sure the audience, we will get something to take back. So thank you very much for being present here to listen to the McCurry story, the journey of an entrepreneur. So without much ado, may I hand over the session to our compere to take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you for that warm welcome, Mr. Janaka Kumarasinghe. I want you all to think about what you had for lunch today. If it is rice and curry, I'm sure all of you know what makes rice and curry tasty more than the person who cooks it are our very own spices, our very own world-renowned spices. And it's not just lunch. Whatever you're going to have for dinner today, if it's something to do with curry, it is thanks to our very own Sri Lankan spices. And today is all about hearing the story of spices. I'm sure this will make some of you hungry, but it's going to be a very interesting story. This event of course, is organized by the Royal College Hostelers Association. ROCOHA, as it is known as, has been around for 26 years. And it has been building camaraderie among the past hostelers and through the support and betterment of the hostelers. And it has done a tremendous service so far. Today, this event, Hostel and Beyond, a journey of an entrepreneur, is all about inspiring not just the youngsters, but each and every one of you by listening to a very own hosteler. I'm sure most of you know quite a bit about him, but let me tell you some very interesting facts about him. An old boy and an impressive all-rounder of Royal College, Mr. Nalin Pathikirikorale started his career as a medical rep with Reckitt and Coleman, then the marketing manager of the same company. He later joined Conso Exports, the only state-owned export company at the time, and worked as a produce executive, dealing with spices and non-traditional exports. So Mr. Nalin has been dealing with spices almost ever since he started his career. In 1975, he was offered a job at Marpo Limited in the United Kingdom, the largest commodity broker in vegetable oils at the time. After 8 years, he was on the board of Marpo to look after their offices in the Far East, stretching from Karachi to Bombay to Delhi to Singapore and all the way up to Tokyo. He established Lanka Group of Companies in Colombo in partnership with Marpo in 1979. It was the only international commodity broker in Sri Lanka and the first company to bond sugar and rice in Sri Lanka. What an interesting company. Lanka Pro was also active in the petroleum sector and represented Glencore, a major international trading house in petroleum and fertilizer, and Indian Oil Corporation, what we all know as IOC, facilitating IOC's entry into Sri Lanka. In 1983, Marpo established an office in Singapore, and Mr. Nalin was moved to Singapore as a result as their managing director. In 1984, he set up Lanka Spice Private Limited to manufacture value-added spices, spice blends, curry powder for both local and export markets under the household name we all know today, McCurry. Some very interesting facts about Mr. Nalin. He is a sports enthusiast and probably the only Sri Lankan, don't quote me here, but he has traveled all over the world and has been to the last 8 Olympic Games and the last 7 World Cup cricket finals. What a journey. He has also been to the Soccer World Cup final, Rugby World Cup final, and the Wimbledon tennis finals. Mr. Nalin is a fellow of the Chartered Management Institute, FCIM, of the United Kingdom. Mr. Nalin, now we cordially invite you to inspire all of us.
Thank you, Sashikala, for the gloated and inspiring introduction. Fellow hostelers, first principal sir, fellow hostelers, it's a great privilege to be invited to speak to my past hostelers as well as the fellow hostelers of a journey that started long time ago. I joined Royal and the hostel in 1956 from Greenlands, now known as Isipatana, after my father passed away a year before. The hostel became my second home for the next 8 years. for I went home to my mother only during the 3-term holidays, which occurred in April, August, and December each year. Cecil Bellet, who was known to us as Bella, was our warden, and the icons such as Elmo de Bruin, Bruno, Mr. Samararatne Tokka, and Mr. Devapriya Deva were the other masters with whom we grew up. Besides being teachers of the school, they were fair men who tolerated truancy with good humor, and it was above levels tolerable, we would end up with 6 of the best. There were about 90 of us at the time, most from outstations, but also a few incorrigibles from around the corner. There's one gentleman here. The principle of hierarchy existed, and we were mortally scared of our prefects and seniors. We were taught to respect the elders without question, and the notion of fair play was ingrained to us from the outset. By the time we left the hostel, we were ready to meet any challenge that life presents, whilst always respecting the other's point of view. We would argue passionately on whatever we believed, but equally agreed to disagree like gentlemen. The day started with physical training, or PT as we called it, at 6:10 a.m. in the morning, with a study period of 1 hour from 6:45 thereof. Breakfast was at 8 o'clock, and we walked to college, which began at 9 a.m. An hour lunch break began at 11:50 a.m., when we would rush back to the hostel for lunch and get back as fast as possible for a round of softball or French cricket, or during the season for touch rugby. School was over at 3:40 p.m. when we were compelled as hostelers to participate in any of the variety of sports that college had to offer. Many hostelers ended up playing cricket, rugby, hockey, tennis, basketball, etc. for college. Indoor games such as table tennis, carom, chess were very popular with the hostelers, and most of them excelled at the highest level. The hostel day was the culmination of each year, and we were served yellow rice and chicken curry on that occasion. Chicken, by the way, was the most expensive meat in those times. The principal of Royal College was always the chief guest, where parents would be invited, and the evening would begin with a number of activities, including a presentation by each grade with a short drama or musical in the presence of our parents. It was such fun, and every hosteler looked forward to the hostel day. There was not an hour that passed without humor and laughter at the hostel. There were all types of pranksters in the hostel, and they would provide free fun for the others at the expense of the day boys and the teachers. When one such hosteler wrote an excuse letter on behalf of his father, who knew nothing about it, he was caught because he started the letter saying, "Please excuse my son, as he was suffering from flu." Well, he got 6 of the best, not for forging, but for misspelling. He spelled FLEW. We would always own up, no sooner we were questioned, saving others from getting into trouble. It was after I left hostel that I began to realize the real contribution hostel life made to mine. I came to respect others' viewpoints, and to realize that there's always someone better than you in any field you may work. The word I became abhorring, and the word we formed a more significant part of life. Teamwork was imbibed with great affection, and we learned to take pride from learning from others around us. Punctuality and dint of hard work was a paradigm to success, as were honesty and integrity in whatever we did. It was perhaps the most enjoyable period of my life. In twilight years, I reminisce the good times I spent in the hostel, and the contribution it made to my life. In reflection, I think every old hosteler needs to repay the debt they owe to the hostel in whichever they can. It's for these reasons that Rokoha members spend time to uplift the life of those who have followed them in this hallowed institution. The greatest achievement in my life, I consider, was the contribution I made in building the new hostel. Giving leadership to such an enormous task was not easy, but the love I had for the hostel overcame all that. Life was never meant to be a bed of roses for me. Having lost my father at the age of 10 and a struggling mother trying to make good for the four of us with a meager pension of 300 rupees. Life indeed was tough. But the love and affection she poured on us made us find that extra strength to make it good for Amma's sake. One thing I learned early in my life was to fight my own battles. Fend for myself, never to look back, and to trust people until proved otherwise. I was in the hostel, and this made me all the more resolute to work closely with others as a team. The words no and can't never entered my vocabulary. There was nothing impossible. I recently introduced 8 norms of conduct to my employees of my companies. 1 is punctuality. Never postpone for tomorrow what can be done today. Courtesy. Be courteous at all times to those seeking your services and be of assistance to them. Discipline. Comply with the rules, regulations, and norms of the company. Integrity. Refrain from abuse of your position or undue use of company resources for your personal benefit. Conscientiousness. Act conscientiously. Team spirit. Perform your duty with team spirit. Impartiality. Do our duty impartially, irrespective of the power or status of those who seek your service. And finally, the exemplary conduct. Conduct yourself within and out of the workplace to enhance the dignity of your company. As you now see how the early seed has blossomed, I had a dazzling career both nationally and internationally. But I always had my heart here in Sri Lanka. That is where I was born, and that's where I will perish. Blessed is this land of ours. At an interview for employment, one applicant on his way out asked me, "Sir, what would it take me to be a success in your company?" I promptly replied, "You will have to think like me." And after he left, I sat down to put in writing, "Think like me." Always anticipate the worst. Trust everyone until proved otherwise. Trust people and they will trust you. Trust is a key prerequisite for prosperity. Don't take no for an answer. Find alternatives always. Don't entertain negative thoughts or negative people. Be positive always. Life is always a laugh. Don't go for hidden meanings and read between lines. Inquire direct when unsure. Set goals. Achieving them then becomes simpler. Never give up until you achieve your goals. Don't entertain tale carriers and doomsdayers. They drain your energy and your positive thoughts. Never show You're a boss. Work with others, not around them. Teamwork is success. Leave your ego at the gate. Be prepared to learn from others and be humble to believe there's always someone smarter than you. Ego is your enemy. Respect experience, however qualified you are. It takes time to learn from books, not from experience. Formal education lands you a job. Self-education makes you a fortune. Take only calculated risks. If you fail in a deal, analyze at your leisure the reasons. If you can't take risks, stay away from business. Intelligence is my guide, but my gut feeling, my certainty. Network. It's not what you know that matters at the end, it's whom you know. Treat people equally, but give credit to merit. The phrases well done and thank you takes you places. Also be spontaneous to say sorry. You don't lose anything. Have a plan for life. Don't drift. Plan for the day, month, year, and the future. Creating wealth, or what they say, making money, is an art. Many have brilliant ideas, only few pursue them. Work smart, not hard. There's always a better and shorter way to achieve any result. Be passionate about anything you do. Success trails passion. No money is the root cause of all evil, not the other way around. A lot of people will say money is the root cause of all evil. Respect money, therefore. Wealth gives you independence. Don't spend beyond your means, even if it is for your children. If your children are grateful and they take care of you, you are blessed, but never take it for granted. Be wary of those who praise you. Cultivate those who argue and give space to differences of opinion. Avoid deal culture, a quick way to make money, but a sure way to land you in trouble. Remember that you will always make a windfall at least once in your lifetime. Only the smart can retain wealth, such wealth. For retaining wealth is more difficult than making it. They say capitalists multiply, socialists and communists divide. Read, read, read. A good reader makes a good leader. Take to a sport all your life if you want to stay healthy. Health is wealth. Learn to enjoy sport, particularly team sport. You learn defeat best from sport. Don't lend money to friends and relations unless you don't want it back or you want to lose your relationship. Equally, don't borrow from friends and relations. The banks are there to do that job. Learn to manage stress. Give it a day or two and it usually fades, so don't worry. Cry. Crying is one of the best ways of releasing stress. In work, company comes first, the workers next, and you the last. Don't believe in horoscopes, astrology, palmistry, good times, bad times, and all this hocus pocus. Your destiny is in your hands. The Buddha said, pray not, the darkness will not brighten. Ask not from the silence, for it cannot speak. Seek not from helpless gods by gift or hymn. Nor bribes with blood, nor feed with fruits or cakes. Within yourself, deliverance must be sought. Each man his prison makes. Never carry a grudge. It only hurts you. Everybody has a good side and a bad. Cultivate the good side and leave the bad side for them to work on. Forget and forgive, otherwise we will be only increasing our blood pressure. Never say I am aged. There are 3 ages: chronological, biological, and psychological. You have some control over the first 2, but the third is how older we feel we are. A positive attitude and optimistic thinking can reverse the third age. Change is the only permanent thing. We should accept change. Follow the AFL rules. Acknowledge, forgive, and let go. And finally, don't suffer fools and ungrateful people. They are your best recipe for catastrophe. These are the guidelines I have lived by. It was Lee Kuan Yew said that I'm very determined. If I decide that something is worth doing, then I put my heart and soul into it. The whole ground can be against me, but if I know it is right, I'll do it. That is the business of a leader. That is also, in one sentence, me. After leaving the hostel and college, I found employment as a medical representative at Lewis Brown's and then finally at Reckitt and Coleman. It didn't excite me going and speaking about Dettol and Disprin to a doctor. Finally, I thought, this is not the line I should be in. I left it and did some study on exports on my own, and finally I joined Consul Exports, which was the only government export organization at the time, as a produce executive. In 1975, I was offered a job in the UK at Marpro Limited, a leading commodity broking company in the world with 14 offices worldwide. Now there again, what I want to say is that there was no vacancy as such. It was my desire at that time to go abroad, and I had virtually taken every tabloid, anything on exports, and written to almost all the companies in the world, in the event there being a vacancy in your company, please consider me. And Marpro wrote a letter back to me saying that, would you like to fly to New Delhi for an interview? I had not flown till that time, and anyway it was at their expense. So I did go for the interview. But the cocky bugger I am, I said, look, you have an office in Mumbai. I'd like to go and see that also before I join you, rather than putting it negatively, take me. So they bought me a ticket and gave 900 rupees to go to Mumbai. At that time it was known as Bombay. I had a nice time, bought some saris for my mother, and then came back. I got the job, and I spent about 6 months in Bombay, trained under them in their office in Mumbai. In 1979, while I was in London, I established the Langpro group of companies here in Sri Lanka. They were the only international commodity broker at that time in this country. We did a lot of business and had established contact with all the levels of the business world in this country, particularly the exporters, and helped them to get across their produce to the international market. In 1983, Marpro established their regional office in Singapore, and I was sent there as their managing director, and I lived there for 5 years. During those years, I traveled far and wide in this part of the world, in Asia, traveling to more than 20 or 15 or 20 countries. In 1984, I set up Lanka Spice Private Limited, which is actually the company that owns McCurry. And the word McCurry, how it was born, is very interesting. When I decided to start this company, there was a guy who had already done a feasibility study for Consul Exports to start a spice manufacturing house here. And quite out of the sudden, I got a call from my former boss at Consul Exports, Mr. Wimalarathne, saying, Pathi, can you find a partner for a company like this to manufacture spices in Sri Lanka, because this guy who actually did it, for whom we did the feasibility study, has now dropped out. So I spoke to my boss in London, and he said, Pathi, if you are prepared to put in money, then we will also put in the money. And then finally we started this Macquarie, that is Langpros Spice Limited, with my putting 60% of the capital and the company in London putting 40%. How did the name Macquarie actually start? I was given hardly a time when Mr. Navaratnam rang and told me, look, what do we actually brand this as? And he suggested things like Kukappu and Padma and several things such as that, which meant no meaning to me. I just told him, why don't we call it Macquarie? He said, why? He said, no, I mean, look, I get the gut feeling that it's a good name to start. It'll give some kind of Anglo-sized meaning to the business. And also the curry, but all spelt in a different way, it gives relationship to the spices. I then migrated to Australia in 1988. And there I had various types of businesses, some of which were successful, some of which were not. I had restaurants, I had a fruit shop, but all the time I was managing my business here in Sri Lanka, although I lived overseas. Then in 2012, I decided to return to Sri Lanka and to take over the working of Lanka Spice and Langpro. So that shortly gives you briefly the journey I took to bring into effect how a business can be started, and provided you have self-confidence and perseverance to push it through, that there is nothing that will stop you. I just brought here an excerpt from a book from Mr. R.I.T. Allis, who was a master of ours in at Royal, but later he is the one who started Gateway. This is the script from Mr. Allis's My Life by R.I.T. Allis. I was at Royal for about 5 to 6 years, and many memorable incidents happened when I was there. When I was in Homagama, I used to come by 6 o'clock bus, and I was in the staff room by 7 a.m. Mr. Elmo D. Bruin, a teacher whom we looked up to, was an adorable gentleman who taught English and maths at A level. I was a young teacher, and one day in the morning he called me up and asked, young man, what is the meaning of the word din? I was wondering because just the previous day I had taught a poem, The Charge of the Light Brigade, and this occurred in that poem. It was the din of the roaring cannons, and that is what I taught in the third form. And I said, the din of the roaring cannons is the noise. I believe that my English was not bad. Then Elmo told me, stick to your explanation and do not change. I asked him, why, what happened, Elmo? He said, he told me this incident. There was a boy called Pathikirikorale in my class. He was a hosteler. He had gone to Bruin to check the meaning of the word din. Royalists are mischievous fellows, and they had thought of challenging the new young master. According to the dictionary, din had also many meanings, cloudy, smoky, etc. That is the smoke that comes out of the roaring cannons when they are fired. I thought it was the noise. So he told me not to change my original explanation. I asked Bruin, how can I do that? Then he said, no first impressions count. This became a problem to me, and I asked, how could I tell a lie? Is it not possible that there can be several meanings? Will not the encyclopedia give it? Considering this, Bruin said, let's go to the Ashley Tennocone. He was a librarian at the time, And lo and behold, the word din had several meanings. I think about 17 of them, and one of which was noise. Bruin told me, you go to the class, Pathikirikorale is going to ask you the question. You say he is correct, and praise children who look for further knowledge. Get Pathikirikorale to go to the library and get the encyclopedia and get him to write the meanings of the word din. At the end, you will be a hero. And that is what I did in the class. And the next day, everybody thought I was a maestro. Well, that was an incident which gave me confidence in the eyes of the royalists. This is in Mr. Alice's autobiography. But the actual story was a bit different than what he has told in the book. At the 10 minutes interval, I hopped across and checked. When Mr. Alice addressing me asked, what is the meaning of the word din? I hadn't a clue. What came to my mouth, I said smoke. He put me up on the form. At the 10 minutes interval, I hopped across the library and checked in those giant dictionaries for the meaning din. Fortunately for me, the word has several meanings, one of which was indeed smoke. Jubilantly, I waited outside the staff room, and when Mr. Alice saw me, I told him that, sir, I'm very hurt that you put me up on the form, because I was right in that the meaning of din was also smoke. He was mad. He insisted he was right. I told him din also meant noise. Anyway, I was happy that I had one on Mr. Alice, who thought no end of himself. I just forgot the incident thereof. This was when we were in the second form, and he had just come to Royal from Richmond. The story about him going to Bruno, I'm not aware, but the incident shows what an upstart he was, and was never a loser. I must add that he went up the education ladder to reach the top. In the end, perhaps because he never wanted to be on the losing side. I have basically finished my story, and I just jotted down a few of the attributes of entrepreneurial or enterprising attributes which one must have if you're getting into business. One is initiative, then strong persuasive powers, moderate rather than high risk taking. You have to take risks, but not take, very high risk. Flexibility, creativity, independence, autonomy, problem solving ability, need for achievement, imagination, high belief is control of one's own destiny, leadership, and hard work. That was my story, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nalin, for that inspiring story you told us. And we would like to keep this session very interactive. So all of you in the audience, please feel free to ask questions. And we would love to hear from you, especially the youngsters present here today. I would just start off the Q&A session. Mr. Nalin, I'm sure when you walked through these gates, you must have had a flashback of memories, a lot of fond memories. What are some of those memories? Would you like to share with us?
Well, there are many memories that come to my mind whenever I pass the Royal College gates. The first I remember was in 1956, when I was just 10 years. My father has passed away just 9 months before. I was thrust into the hostel by my mother because she was living back in Gaul. So the hostel became my second home. Things I remember most is that we had boys from all races and religions in the hostel. but we never ever occurred to us that they belonged to anything else other than a part of the human race and hostelers and royalists. So we mixed up very well, and I don't think there was even one occasion where we had any kind of disagreement with others on the basis of race and religion. The other matters that remind me at Royal is that it gave us tremendous opportunities with the kind of extracurricular activities that they had on the tray. There was, activities in the classrooms like debating, speaking, and there was others in the playing fields. There was rugby, there was hockey, there was cricket, there was again indoor sports like table tennis, carom, and particularly for the hostelers, it became very easy. It became very easy to participate because it didn't take 2 or 3 minutes from the time you come after school at 3:40, have your tea, and you can get back into the fields, whereas day boys would have to go home and then come back. So these are the things that come to my mind. But of course, more than anything, I think we had great camaraderie amongst the schoolmates. We respected our seniors without any question, our teachers without any repercussions from them. It's a great place and great life, and today I'm very grateful for the hostel.
Thank you, Mr. Nalin. I like how you said that being a hosteler, it was very easy for you to participate in extracurricular activities, and I'm sure that had a lot of grooming for your entrepreneurial journey. Were there any hardships you faced as a hosteler, staying away from family, perhaps?
Yes and no. The thing is that once term started until term ends, we had forgotten everything about home because we had our friends, and it was one big tamasha of laughter and gaiety as far as we were concerned. But when it came to the time of going back home, then the other way around, you feel homesick for the hostel. I remember in 1958, when the race riots took place, I was the last to go from the hostel. All the others had gone home, and my mother had no way to come from Gaul to pick me up. So I was just lost there for about 3 or 4 days alone in the hostel. And meals were made only for me. But we survived. But I must say, when you say survive, when you look back, they were very happy days.
Speaking of your mother, you spoke fondly about your mother during your speech as well, and how she has been a very influential person in your journey. Were there any other influential people in your journey?
Well, my mother took the role of both father and mother. She was a very strong lady. We come from the south, from Akbimana, and we have a property there, and this was the ancestor property that came to my mother. And she did not want to remain in Colombo after my father passed away. I think quite rightly she made the right decision and she went back there, but I was the lucky one to be in the Royal College hostel and away from home. I enjoyed every moment of it.
I'm sure you can attribute your success to a lot of things. But if you can attribute your success to one thing in one word, what would that be?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer. If it was just one word that would describe and attribute my success to, I would say self-confidence. If you are not a confident person, if you are not willing to pursue what you believe till its end, then nothing is going to actually work for you. So I think you have to build your confidence around anything that you want to do if you want to succeed.
A lot of people, I feel, want to or would like to become entrepreneurs, but of course, it's not an easy journey. I would like to ask you, is an entrepreneur's journey a lonely journey as opposed to joining a corporate and taking a traditional career path?
Well, all of us entrepreneurs, for instance, Mr. Ranasinghe is here, we started working for others before we started realizing that we need to work for yourself and not for a salary of some other. It's not everybody who makes that courageous decision because they don't seem to have the self-confidence that if someone else can do it, that you could do it better. So it's left with a handful of people who makes that decision and take it on and make it a success.
Thank you. Having built a brand, a world-renowned brand from scratch, you know the importance of building a brand. What strategies did you use to build a very successful brand name?
To tell you very honestly, I didn't have a clue when I started this business of anything about a brand. That's the honest truth. Somebody said that we should start a spice factory. The feasibility study was on the table to me, and I started the business without any idea of, building a brand as such. Branding and things like that, which is more technical, came to life only later. What we were actually building is a good product, a product that can be used in every household, a product that will be respected by everyone, a product that will be pure as far as possible, so that every housewife would be relieved to make use of. And at the same time, you had to be very price conscious and have your pricing right. But this is sometimes not easy in Sri Lanka, because if you do not adulterate or mix grade 2 or grade 3 chilies with grade, where you be competing with others whose prices are very much lower. But I stuck to what I believed. Today, McCurry goes, without question, as a very unadulterated, pure product. And that has stayed well for us in the long term.
Thank you for sharing those thoughts. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to ask Mr. Nalin a question? Please let us know and we will get the mic to you. Yes, we have one gentleman here.
Thank you for this fantastic presentations. If I may refer to you as set as I knew you, I promise you that I will not talk about a few other deeds because I'll set this place on fire. But just to catch on this very important thing that you covered, that was very appropriate for you to cover on the branding. See, branding is coining a name. Merely coining a name to catch virtually catch the audience, their impression on the shelf is an important factor. And I think he said that he hadn't a clue. But I think that was, in my opinion, that cut everything across, got him onto a position that everyone today, it's a household name, not only in this country, but perhaps in other parts of the world. So I think, Nalin, if I may say, I think it went beyond a mere product behind a package. It merely brought about a control on the shelf control of it, distribution aspects of it, and a strategy that is second to none. So I think if you can elaborate a little more, I'm sure a lot of these young boys would want to know, because their mothers would use this McCurry in their homes. So if you can give us a little insight to that, that would be very appropriate. Thank you.
I want to be very honest in that it sort of fell in place each time. I had no technical or background knowledge to branding. It was that I built a product passionately to be pure as possible without any adulteration and let the product talk for itself. The brand name and so on came subsequently, and as I said, McCurry was selected out from nowhere. At that time, I didn't have any clue whether it was going to be a successful name or not. But I believe that if the product was good, irrespective of the name, people would follow that product. And given at a reasonable cost to the consumer, and particularly items like curry powder, which is used in every household, chili powder, which is whole every household. If you can win the confidence of the housewife as product which is pure and that they can guarantee what they're offering to whoever comes for a meal with the best of the ingredients.
Let the product speak for itself. I think that's a very good line, Mr. Nalin. And I completely echo your words on McCurry being a very well-known homemade brand, because whenever I had to tell anyone that I am coming for this event today, all I had to tell was McCurry. And everyone initially recognized that word. And of course, and is there anyone else in the audience who would like to ask a question?
Thank you, Nalin, for your thought-provoking speech. Mac, when you say Mac, what comes to my mind is McDonald's. Did you have any problem with McDonald's when you say McCurry?
Well, frankly, when I suggested the name McCurry, at the back of my mind, truthfully, was McDonald's. But I would never admit it publicly to anybody, right? Because I was in London at the time, and then I was given some names like Padma, Kukapu, and various other names, which was like local, by Mr. Navratnam, who was actually going to run the company. And I said, no, Suma, let's do something different. Let's, anglicize the thing. Let's do something, different. Give me a day and I will think of a name and I'll come back. And suddenly it occurred to me that I should play on the McDonald's Mac and then put the word curry, but in a different spelling, and coined up this name McCurry. There was no research done on it. It had now sort of known to every household, this after 35 years, of course. But at the end of the day, I always believe that if the product is good, then the name really doesn't matter.
Before McCurry, everyone probably associated the word Mac with burgers and some sort of English food. So he associated the word Mac with curry, which is very far from burgers. I believe that is what we call creativity and the risk-taking ability which you mentioned. Can we have a question from some of the youngsters here? Yes, please go ahead.
We started working with you when we were prefects in 2001. So ever since we were sort of following you, working with you. If you could share, sir, particularly on the current situation of the country, you see a lot of people thinking of leaving the country, the migration, and I know for a fact that you challenge it all the time. You say this is the best country to be. So if you could please share on that angle some of your views on that, being an entrepreneur as well as the otherwise in the context. Thank you, sir.
I hate to answer political questions, but since you have put it on my lap, I should be able to reply that. See, a lot of the problems in this country are related to the politicians who run this country. But at the end, who is to be blamed? It's we. We are the guys who are going and voting these people into power. You get an honest guy come forward, he'll lose his deposits. So we have to take the blame ultimately for the state of the country. As far as politicians are concerned here, there is no innovative, there is no innovation. Everybody is, standardized, follows what have been going on for the last 10 or 20, 25 years. Very few times have we had leaders which sort of changed the direction of the country. For instance, SWRD was one, from a very anglicized background for country where a ruling sort of mobbing Colombo controlled everything. He took it to the masses. That he made the difference. Whether it was the right or the right thing, I do not know. What the results have, this thing, I'm not going to comment on. But at the end of the day, as businessmen, for us to depend on politicians is the last thing. In fact, I have never ever gone to any politician to get any kind of favor. Instead, I have increased the quality of my products and let the public speak for it. Because going behind people, you're actually degrading yourself. Because why do you need someone to help you when you are producing some of the best stuff?
Mr. Nalin, I had a question. You spoke about how no or never give up was not in your vocabulary. However, there are many instances in life where we have to say no. Perhaps if it's an overloaded work, or if we see something unethical between our own teammates, etc. How do you navigate such situations?
No, I mean, it's selecting the right thing and the wrong thing, as simple as that. If you have to say no, I'm not saying that when I meant that that no was not in my vocabulary, it was regarding, the decisions I was going to make. But the fact is, at the end of the day, is that if anybody comes with any kind of, suggestions which does not work out with your plan, you must have the courage to say, no man, I don't believe in this, and I don't want to get involved in this rubbish and nonsense and get into trouble.
As a sports enthusiast who has traveled the world to watch sports, what is your favorite sport?
A good question to ask. Having played most of the sports in school, without any question, cricket is my first love. I've been to many World Cup finals, I've been to Lords, I've been to Melbourne, you name the place. I followed, the Sri Lankan cricket team in 1996, hosted Arjuna and his boys in Brisbane, where I had a restaurant. And cricket was definitely my first love, but of course, I say it very closely following is rugby, because I played for the school, and that was another team sport that really inspired me.
Who is your favorite cricketer?
Who is my favorite cricketer? Of the modern day, I would say Arjuna Ranatunga, for several reasons. Because Arjuna believed in himself. He was not going to be put down. If you remember the incident that he argued with, what's that umpire's name? Darrell Hare. He really took him on to pieces, and never had ever on the cricket field has such a thing occurred where he stood his ground. And eventually, of course, at that time, everybody thought what he did was wrong from the sportsmanship point of level, but he fought for his ground. Arjuna, without any question, is someone very close to my mind. But if I look for overseas players, people like Len Hutton, I don't think some of you guys were ever born, during that time. There were Australians, cricketers, because those days the main antagonist was England versus Australia. And being a cricket maniac, I followed many of those cricketers, and I have books and books of their autobiographies at my home. And I think a lot of my thinking also was, as a result, oriented towards sportsmanship and equality and fairness.
It's great to see you find time to watch cricket and all these other sports despite your very busy schedule. I believe we have another question.
Power and energy is a major business in the world. In fact, I can say some hostelers are connected to that. The latest Kerala-Biti Yugadanavi power station. In fact, the signatory from the US is a hosteler actually for that thing. And also I can see in the thing Afghanistan power project leader is also in the audience. I know you are also connected to that, to some lot of power and energy business. I think you were the person instrumental in bringing Indian Oil Company to Sri Lanka. Can you tell something about it?
These are business secrets, huh? Well, when I was in London, I overlooked the local company which actually I was a partner. And we were looking for agencies to represent some of the giants in the world. And in the petroleum sector, there was a company by the name of Markrich, which was turned later to Glencore. Markrich was one of the well-known and cleverest businessmen ever. I don't think you would have heard of him. But since I was interested in the petroleum sector and the petroleum tenders in Sri Lanka, because they were large-scale purchases, unlike the small items. They would have long-term contracts on crude oil, then gas oil, naphtha, the whole works. So I was looking for agencies to represent those petroleum products in Sri Lanka. So when I was in London, I had done business with Glencore in the grain sides. I went and met their petroleum sector, and I explained to them that I have an entree into Sri Lankan the petroleum sector, the power sector, and got the agency and started working with them, and was very, very successful in supplying some of the major contracts. Then I got the agency of Indian Oil. That again, I personally knew that Sri Lanka was looking to get out of being in the hands of private people. So they were looking for some government-to-government business houses. At that time, I had some good friends in India. I ran them and I said, look, can you get me an interview to go and see the directors of Indian Oil? And then I went and met them and I explained the entire thing and the risks involved and so on, and that the only player in Sri Lanka is the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. And therefore the risk is very limited. And then why don't they look at, coming into Sri Lanka, and then thereby got their agency. And it was I who eventually got them to come into the, the marketing side and take 1/3 share of the petroleum sector. Eventually, at that time, the head of PERC was Dr. Jayasundara, and the idea was to break the petroleum sector into 3 areas. We have 3 players, that is CPC, who had the monopoly until that time, then one other player, possibly a Chinese, and the other one an Indian. We got the Indian, but finally the Chinese at that time was not really interested.
Look at most of the Sri Lankan SMEs, like entrepreneurs. So they have a particular plateau at their growth, like after saturating the local market. So they have issue in reaching the internationals. So I think you have a very good rapport with these commodity suppliers in European market. So you had an advantage. So for a newcomer who is in the industry, so if they wish to reach these the international markets, so what are the clues or what are the insights that you can provide for them?
See, the thing is, whether it's one time or old time or new time is not the question. There's always new players coming into the market. Now, for instance, if you look at the sugar market, you will find a set of sugar traders, international traders who are registered here and who have been supplying for years and years. But you have to only delve into the net or to any of these commodity journals, and you will find at least another 10 very well-known suppliers in the world, but who's not represented in this country. So you can always approach them. But in approaching them, you have to show that you have some clout. If every mother's son goes and says, look, I want your agency, they won't give it. But you have to have some kind of a background. You should have been in the sugar trade. You know what the quantities are imported. You know from where they are imported. You know everything about it when you go to them. And then they feel, look, this is a market we have not looked at. I think it's time to look at it. They will put one of their traders with you, and then you, over a period of 6 months, 1 year, build and build up the business. I mean, in those days, because most of the business was in the state hands, it was quite easy. Sugar was imported only by the state sector. Same was wheat. Same was vegetable oils and so on. But now, the private sector is involved. Private sector doesn't need, any intermediary. They'll do all their own homework and find people to buy from. And they won't only buy from one person. They will have 2 or 3 players internationally, one in Australia, one in the UK, in Hamburg or something, and they'll play one against each other and buy competitively. But in this commodities game, I must also tell you, it's not an easy one for everybody to enter. You need to know the commodity, but more importantly, you need to identify the good players, the reliable players, because there are a lot of Johnny-come-lately who will give you an offer and you accept the business, and if the market goes against them, they won't supply. So you're really stuck here at this end. You have a contract which you have to oblige and you cannot supply. So therefore, you need to play, you need to find parties who are reliable, who have been in that particular commodity for a long time, if you want to get involved in it. But as a private sector guy, if you have the capacity to import, you can just ask 10 or 15 different people for offers. But they will first check on you whether you have the financial capacity to buy 10,000 tons of sugar at that time. They will ask you for bank references. They will say that, where do you house this sugar when you come? Have you got warehouses? So the international players are pretty clever, and they will not get caught to each and every one. Therefore, you have to do your homework before you go into the market.
Thank you, Mr. Nalin. So many things to think about, to find good and reliable players, to think about financial institutions, to warehousing capabilities, to market entry. So many things to think about when you are having the journey of an entrepreneur as well as entering the commodities market. Thank you very much, Mr. Nalin, for accommodating the Q&A session and for sharing your thoughtful insights.
Let me take this opportunity to thank you very much for coming in between to direct the questions to me and get the possible answers.
And now I would like to invite the Secretary of the Royal College Union, Colonel Dr. Hiran Wimalarathne, on stage, as well as President of Rokoha, Mr. Janaka Kumarasinghe, as well as the chief guest for the evening, Mr. M.V.S. Gunathilake. And to read the citation, I would like to cordially invite Chairman, Hostel Advisory and Management Committee, Mr. Sanjay Vijay Singh.
Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. I actually have his CV with me, issued by the then principal, but if I go to read out all those, it will take much time, and then since our moderator and the President Rokoha covered most of it, but let me touch on a few things that I'm supposed to do. Actually, people will wonder why we are felicitating him today. Leave aside his success story as a businessman. We all know that Makkar is a household name in the market. But for the services rendered by Mr. Nalin Pathikirikorale, starting with the hostel, and then to college, of course the RCU, and also to the society. Now, we are all very proud that we are doing such an event. I'm thankful to my colleague Janaka and his team for arranging such an event, because this gentleman was a former trustee of the RCU, currently a vice president, and he has led Rokoha for many years. I was fortunate to work with him, plus headed the hostel advisory for many years as well. For the benefit of the students who are here present today, I don't need to talk at length, but then that the main hostel building which was initiated by Mr. Pathikirikorale and the team. And we were so lucky that, on many occasions he has raised funds officially for conducting things like carnivals and stage dramas, various other projects. I personally know that he has on many occasions donated personal funds of his to the betterment of the hostel. So I'm indeed honored and pleased that I got this opportunity to talk to the distinguished gathering. Let me touch on two things that others missed out on. In the Q&A session that moderator and the audience asked him a few questions, but before we came for the session, I asked Nalin, am I supposed to ask questions? He said, you guard your tongue, because on many occasions at ROKOA events, before and after, or maybe during events, he used to share stories about his business and leisure trips. So in his CV or whatever the note that I have got, it says that he has traveled over to 75 countries. Like what Nalin said, if anybody wants to know about his leisure and the things that he has done, most of you all are welcome to ask me. Right? Anyway, once again, lady and the gentlemen, I have the honor of calling Mr. Nalin Pathikirikorale to the stage because we have got a memento to be given to you, sir. I will hand it over to Janaka and the team. Thank you.
Thank you to the presentation party for awarding Mr. Nalin with the ROKOA Pranama Award. Thank you. And now I would cordially like to invite on stage again President of ROKOA, Mr. Janaka Kumarasinghe, and Secretary of ROKOA, Mr. Anjana Ratnavira, to present the award for the chief guest, Mr. M.V.S. Gunathilake, who has been instrumental in the services he has rendered. ROKOA would like to appreciate his services to the association and beyond. Mr. Gunathilake, please come to the stage. An event like this, especially in times like this, requires a lot of meticulous planning and dedication by the people who are behind this. To deliver the vote of thanks, I would like to cordially invite Mr. Nandalal Vijayasinghe, who is the Assistant Secretary of ROKOA and who is a mass media lecturer. Mr. Nandalal, the stage is yours.
Good evening to you all, chief guest, guest of honor, all other distinguished guests, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. I am deeply honored and thankful to the organizing committee for the opportunity given to me to propose the vote of thanks on this glamorous occasion. First of all, before my proposing vote of thanks, I have a duty to perform. Please allow me to do that. This evening, the whole session was very well conducted by this young lady, Mrs. Shashikala Vanikasinghe. We, ROKOA, have a memento for her in appreciation of her wonderful presentation. to award this token of appreciation, please let me invite our Secretary of Rokoha, young and energetic character, Mr. Anjana Ratnavira, to the stage. Thank you, Mr. Anjana. Thank you, Ms. Sashikala. We appreciate your young talents and wish you all the best in all your future endeavors. Now, the ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks to extend our Rokoha gratitude towards you and to acknowledge the contributions of those who work tirelessly behind the scene to make this event a success. On behalf of Royal College All Hostelers Association, I extend a hearty vote of thanks to our Honorable Chief Guest, Royal College Principal, Mr. M.V.S. Gunathilake, who spared time from his busy schedule to grace this occasion. You being with us, sir, it's an honor to us and it's an honor to the event as well. Rokoha thanks to our guest of honor, Royal College Union Secretary, Colonel Dr. Mr. Hiran Wimalarathne, for your valuable advices and for their presence here. A big thank you goes to our key personality, Mr. Nalin Pathikirikorale, for all your valuable contributions made today to make this occasion colorful. We had the opportunity to listen to the veteran entrepreneur, Mr. Nalin Pathikirikorale. He shared his lifelong experiences with us, which enlightened our minds. Your deep and intellectual way of imparting knowledge has added glory to this event and inspiring to young members too. We have many distinguished guests and participants in this occasion. Forgive me for not naming any because I will have to name many. Dear sirs, we have no words to convey our sincere gratitude for your valuable presence here. We take this opportunity to express our deep sense of appreciation to you all. Then our teachers. It is said that a teacher is a compass that activates the magnets of curiosity, knowledge and wisdom of the pupils. So we would like to express our sincere gratitude to our college teachers who activated the magnets of curiosity, knowledge and wisdom in us, which enabled us to create wonderful people who we are in today. Sincere thanks go to our vice principals and the college staff as well. A big thank you should go to RCU officials, then Mr. Asangapiris, Secretary, School Development Society, then Acting Warden, Mr. Janaka Jayasinghe, then Sub-Warden and the past wardens as well. Mr. Aruna De Silva is representing the past wardens. So we thank you all, sirs. We do not forget to thank our RCU, Rokoha and Hostel Advisory Committee present and past office bearers. And we thank Hostel Advisory Committee Chairman, Mr. Sanjay Vijay. So we thank our all boys. We thank them all. We appreciate the entire supporting services, RCU Skills Center Manager, Mr. Harshan Adhikari and his staff. He supported us a lot. Then Perra and Sons for refreshments, videography team, still photography team, sound engineering team, technical supporting team. We want to appreciate their efforts for making the event colorful and continuing smoothly. The last but not the least, our sincere gratitude goes to the media personnel and media partners, to all TV channels, radio channels and newspaper institutions, especially SLBC for being our electronic media partner for the event. Mr. TDK Jayant, news director, he helped us a lot. Lake House is also thanked for being our print media partner for this event. All the senior editors and journalists of Lake House newspapers, we thank you all. An event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheels started rolling weeks ago. It requires planning and a bird's eye view for detail. we have been fortunate enough to be backed by a team of very proactive and dedicated committee, that is Rokoha Committee of 2022. I am short of words for their involvement and their willingness and enthusiasm to take on the completion of tasks beyond their comfort zones and many challenges. I must say a few words about our present president also. A good leader makes his men realize that they have more abilities than they think they have, so that they consistently do better work than they thought they could.
Mr. Janaka Kumarasinghe, you are a leader of that kind.
Janaka, we appreciate your behind-the-screen commitment and your kind leadership as well. So now I will conclude by saying that we appreciate all of your contributions, and we, Royal College All Hostelers Association, bow you all for physically being here to grace this occasion in this critical pandemic situation. Thank you very much, sirs, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nandalal. All good things must come to an end. We hope you had a great time, and we hope you were inspired by listening to the inspirational speeches today. And good night and stay safe.